Welcome to another episode of My Corner of the Universe. Today, we interviewed Mary Ann Hawley with Unify Impact, and she has just this really cool platform about sustainability, investment. It's an incredible trend that I think is going to be on the rise in today's day and age. To give you kind of layman's terms of it, she's created a very in-depth system using AI to be able to look at companies that you want to invest and add into your portfolio that are doing social good. I hate to use that kind of catchphrase, but just doing all the things right. Climate good, social good, all these different things that enables you, and also providing a return on your money. So it's not just like, hey, I'm going to invest in this company because they do a lot of good things, but they're not profitable. You know, she obviously has a heavy heart for making sure that it invests well. But it's just hearing about the platform was really exciting to hear it directly from her
Yeah,
words.
I think it's needed. I mean, to be honest, all these companies on the exchange probably come up with their cookie cutter cut sheet of like, hey, this is what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
And as an investor, you're probably like, well, I have no idea. This one's doing well. Like Tesla is skyrocketing. But to have a tool where it can really data mine everything about that company and see if, that's where you want to invest. And she says, at the end of the night, can you go to bed with a clear conscience of what you're investing in? So,
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
just in
makes sense.
a totally, and in a weird way, and this, I don't know how great of an example this is, but she talked about gender equity. So like, let's say there's a company X that you really liked and they had a decent return, but then you'd never know that they've never had a woman in the C-suite their entire existence or whatnot. That's just a random example, but you could see that and you're like, okay, this is an important issue for me personally, so I don't want to invest in this company. But without Unify, like, you wouldn't be able to know that.
Yeah. And she has, I think she said there's 8 different kind of data points that can be that you can fine tune to like, yeah, that's really important to me. And, you can have the companies ranked by what data points are important to you. So definitely worth checking out, especially if you're an investor. Or she even said, you can kind of go through your 401k and just kind of look and see what you're already invested in. Maybe you can de-invest in some of those companies and put your money somewhere else that you feel good about.
Yep, absolutely. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Make sure that you are subscribing, that you're sharing these episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube. We're now uploading pretty much all of our podcast episodes on YouTube. So if you want to see the video version of some of these interviews, you can check us out on My Corner of the Universe on YouTube. But share these. The more
Yeah,
exposure that you get, the more it helps out people like Mary and Unify and all the other great nonprofits that we work with. It's really spreading the word for them.
exactly. Yep. So make sure to go check out Unify Impact and see if it's right for you. Enjoy the episode. All right. Today on My Corner Universe, we have the pleasure of interviewing Mary Ann Hawley from Unify Impact, which is a new investment tool that is going to really change the way we think about investments. Is that true, Mary Ann?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why don't you just jump right into it and tell us how you got the idea to start this company?
Okay. So, I mean, for a long time, there has been interest in sort of socially responsible investing. When it first started, it was things like, I don't want to have alcohol, tobacco, firearms, polluters in my portfolio. But wealth managers would include them because it's a diversified portfolio and they're going to make money. So keep them in. And that was about the extent of it, but it's grown since then. And the next sort of level of this was this idea that I don't care if it does a lot for my portfolio, I don't care if I make money, but I have to have my conscience clear at night when I go to bed.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
We've grown up from that, and that's what's really exciting. I just love it. There's a lot of data out there now. This is data that has been, until now, primarily available to institutions like institutional banks, wealth managers, and financial analysts. But it's all been on the institutional side. And that's how they can come up with thematic funds, for instance. Are you familiar with that term?
I am not. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and explain that.
Okay, so a thematic fund, a themed fund, if you will, would be like all about cannabis. This is so cool.
Okay.
I'm
Got it.
going to be
Yeah.
in a cannabis fund, or I don't like, I want to be in a decarbonization fund. So I want to
Mhm.
make sure that I'm not leaving a carbon footprint. And so it's a form of passive investing because you're given a list of companies under this sort of headline of this ETF or fund. And that's great, except for if you have issues that are also concerning you in this world, like gender equity or supply chain issues, or you're not even sure, but you just know that the world we're living in right now is not the happiest place to be.
Right.
No
So
way, really?
I know, but if you,
Yeah.
the idea is you think you're doing so well in this decarbonization fund, but if you start to unpack the companies and you have the ability to see how each company is performing in other areas of sustainability or social prevalence, you could see that, oh my God, I can't believe this. Their gender equity practices are terrible in the C-suite, or they're not honoring LGBTQ, or hang on a minute, what's happening with clean water in this company?
Mhm.
So we have been able to be the first company for people like you and me to get our hands on actual data on companies and granular data. So these data companies can find out all kinds of information on companies. They find it through company self-reported data that companies have to do. But now it's getting much more powerful because along with the raw data, you have social media input and you've got news. And
That's
so,
cool.
yeah, so the data can get quite granular and quite fun. And I was at a conference a couple of years ago in London, and it was an amazing conference on sort of like it had geopoliticists there and world economists, and it was just about the state of the world and how everything, and it was called Impact 19. And while I was there was a company called Refinitiv that was an offshoot of Reuters. Now, you probably have heard of Reuters. It's like the Associated Press,
Right.
right? It's a news source. And what was really cool was this company, Refinitiv, spun out, but because they were news heavy, they were able to take companies down to the point of, like, you could look up a company under environmental, and you could say there's not enough light in the ladies' room in this particular bank. I mean, that's how little it got. I mean, almost ridiculously granular.
Wow.
But was so cool that companies had to expose themselves to the point where you get an inside story into who they are and how, as a shareholder or stakeholder, this is tremendously powerful. So we were able to partner with a ESG data provider, and also we're partnered with a market data provider, which also powers Robinhood. So we're in good company so that we can actually show our users both sustainable performance in companies and see if they align with their values and how they're doing in the market. Because the theory now, or not the theory, but the very serious thinking on the street now is that companies that don't perform well have a market risk now. They're actually going to risk not doing well if they don't have good practices.
You mentioned ESG. I don't want to skip over that. So for anyone that's listening that doesn't know what that is, can you kind of
Yeah, most of us don't. Do
Yeah.
you want to take a guess what it is?
Well,
Or do you know?
environmental, let's see, what else would it be?
Yeah.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, classic. This is everybody. We all don't know what it is, but it has been around for a while. And what it is an umbrella sort of acumen for environmental concerns. And that, so think about it: pollution, water waste, decarbonization, anything to do with our environment.
Gotcha.
Social, what we see right now in our real world with the election and with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
So imagine companies, how are they performing? Are they giving money? Are they big donors to, political campaigns? Are they allowing enough women in the C-suite? What is their policy on, any number of things? So social is things like what we're going through with our issues right now with COVID, with crowded housing, with policies that aren't doing well for us. And then governance is where
Governance. Okay.
Okay, governance is how companies are performing and how they have to respond to their shareholders. And
Gotcha.
that goes into things like, supply chain transparency,
Mhm.
employment practices, hiring practices, pay. Think about it. Think about the processing plants during the early part of COVID, when everyone
Right.
got sick
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the companies themselves just, I don't know, we just got to keep working, so just all go together, and everyone got terribly ill. That's really bad governance.
Mhm.
So
And
So
so you have AI, sorry, Vader. You have
go ahead.
AI that will take the ESG side and then it will mix it with the AI that kind of digs through just the straight market
market
energy.
stuff, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So you can see how a company's performing from both levels. And I will tell you that our market data is daily. So you're seeing it just like anyone else, how the market's going up and down and such like that. The sustainable data, my goal is that we get we have as much momentum on a daily basis in that, but historically it's going to look slower. So you might compare three companies and then one might have a score of, say, in water waste, a 6, and someone else might have a 4.3. And it's hard to understand, well, what exactly do these things mean? But these companies are finding out this data, as I told you, through a combination of reported data, social media, and news. And the company that we're working with has a 0 to 100 performance. We have an algorithm to change it because we are our own company. We can't, we can't use exactly. And one of the things right now that's frustrating the industry is that there's many of these ESG data providers who have their own methodology. So what we have tried to do as Unify is find one that has the most robust combination, like how many
Gotcha. That makes
sources that
sense.
we can get.
Yeah, gotcha. I just to kind of wrap my head around it, and maybe for those listening to really
Sure.
wrap their head around it, is a good way almost. Let me know if this is in my mind what I'm thinking about as a parallel. Are you familiar with Glassdoor, the website where like if you're looking for a job, it's like you can see reviews on what the company's like. So is this in a way kind of like Glassdoor, but for investors, but like on steroids, like 100 times more in depth? Like you're like, hey, I want to invest in this company, but I want to like see into the culture of the company and what it's like, and and their social.
Um, I think it's still just at Glassdoor level at this point because we're just
Okay.
an MVP, but that's our goal. We
Okay.
want to be as in-depth and granular so that you know everything.
Very cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think it's so important what you're doing. I don't know where I heard this recently. It was like over the last 40 years, I think one of the highest performing, most consistent stocks was, it wasn't Philip Morris or RJ Reynolds, but it was a cigarette company.
Of course.
Um and people would be like, it's that, I would guess maybe, 40 years ago, people just like, oh, I just want this in my portfolio. But there's such an awakening now where people are like, no, I don't care if it's high performing. I don't want to invest in this company.
Right.
And what you're doing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're doing is helping investors who are like, hey, I want to know. And that's a really easy one, cigarettes. But obviously, like you said, like all these
No, but
different
you're
aspects
right.
within the culture.
Right. So you're right, because that is an exclusionary type of decision making. I want to exclude any kind of harmful. That's considered exclusionary. So you can choose to say, in my portfolio, I want nothing to do with tobacco, firearms. What's exciting about us is that, as I said earlier, every company, I think every company really wants to do well in the world in some way, shape, or form. What we're giving you is not just don't invest in this company because it's cigarettes. We're giving you 8 impact values from which to choose your own values from.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah, and then the companies pop up and you'll see them on a graph, on like a type of graph, like a spider web graph, and you'll see how they're scoring on those impact values. And you get a sort of
And
holistic.
so is this an app or is it
It's a web-based app right now, but yeah,
web-based app? Okay,
right
gotcha.
now. Mhm.
And so is it is there a service charge or how does that side of it work? Can anyone just sign up for free? Is it
Yeah, well, okay, that's the major question. We have just launched our app, so we are in beta testing with an MVP. We are looking to becoming like the Robin Hood of sustainable investing. So we're looking
Okay.
at becoming actual RIAs, registered investment advisor.
Okay.
Gotcha.
At this point, we're at the intersection of sustainability and fintech.
Okay. And so to clarify too, so you guys aren't necessarily a trading platform right now. Like people aren't going to
Not
go
at
on
this
your
point.
site. Is that something that you see as a long-term goal that would be cool to have?
Absolutely.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely. Because my goal is that the future wealth holders, which we have tons of statistics on, which is about your age, it's the millennials and also the rising Gen Z natives,
Mm-hmm.
they're coming up. The transfer of wealth is enormous once and what's thrilling to me is the transfer of wealth is going to people who have societal cares, who are really concerned about the kind of world they've been left behind and the kind of world they want to leave behind.
Right.
And that juncture is to me just absolutely thrilling that we can we can start with this type of thing so that you can start building portfolios or unpacking your 401k to have anything you're investing in align with your values and still make a return in the long run. So this is all about making a return. This isn't just feel good.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
obviously, yeah, I think you're right, and that's a good thing to hit home to people. It's like, hey, this isn't right. It's not just about, hey, I just want to give some money to this company, and like we have a ton of nonprofits, so we're like all about helping out nonprofits. But this is like, hey, this is a way you can like actually get a return on your money because in life, we have investments and we want to get a return on your money, but you can do it in a way that also is benefiting companies that are doing things socially responsible.
So, when you talk about nonprofits, we actually want to be aligned with certain nonprofits. There's a couple really amazing NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations. One is called As You Sow, and it's all about shareholder rights. So to be able to have a friendship with them within our app is really important to us because
Oh, that
we
makes sense.
believe in shareholder rights.
Yeah.
Another one is called Slave Free Trade, and this is a really cool new
Mm.
app where you can actually have a like a reader on your phone that you can go into a store
Scan.
and
Right.
scan and see if what happened on the supply chain. So
Oh,
they're
that's
all about
cool.
slave free trade. I mean, but they're each of those two NGOs have a specific thing they're working with,
Right.
and that's wonderful. We want to be aligned with that. And then another thing that is exciting for us is when I said that we're on sort of the intersection of sustainability and fintech, we have become a UN Principles of Responsible Investing signatory. That means that we are aligned with the UN's SDG goals. I might be using way too many technical words.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
But what's cool, in a nutshell, the UN made a promise that by 2013, we're going to leave no one behind in the world. This is sort of a lofty worldwide goal, but they really believe in this. And some of these things are like zero hunger, clean water, and sanitation, and gender equity. So the UN has these major lofty worldwide goals. This is what England's listening to, Africa's listening to. Hopefully soon America will be able to be part of this again. But that's our sort of sustainable, holistic approach. We're also getting a license with another acronym called SASB. And SASB is the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. Now, this is industry specific. This is what all Wall Street would be working with. This is really fantastic because it connects companies and investors on the financial impacts of sustainability. So in other words, we believe strongly that a company's performance will affect their performance in the market. And bad performance or bad materiality will create market risk for them. And this is a huge message. It's getting stronger and stronger. And by an app like Unify, I'm hoping that the crowd will make it, very strong.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And this might be unrelated, but it seems like, in some sense, today I just happened to be listening to something, and they talked about how we can actually invest into companies like Halliburton and other companies that are in the military industrial complex. And from the outside looking in, you'd be like, okay, well, it's a private company, you can invest in it. But on a deeper level, when you're investing in a company like that, Raytheon or whatever the company is, you're investing in war. So I could see that kind of going kind of hand in hand with, some of the things that you're talking about, because you're funding a company that funds war.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, we're just looking at publicly traded companies at this point. We're not in private equity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what you're saying is right. But if you had the data on Raytheon all the way around and see what other areas are they doing well, besides just what they're doing for defense, you
Right.
get a more holistic picture of the company.
Gotcha. Yeah, the whole big picture.
Reaction like, oh my God, they're creating war.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they may well be, but I'm just saying.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great, because
company like Exxon,
it's not a snapshot. Right.
Yeah. I had a question for you.
Sure.
Did you start out as like, okay, so in your journey, I feel like you're at a point where you're very interested and passionate about investments and return on investments, but also social good. So where did you start? Did you start out in the investment world and have like an epiphany and say, hey, this is all about money, we need to look at this way? Or were you more in the social good world and then tried to move over to the investment world?
Okay, I'll tell you my personal story.
Let's hear it. Or probably neither of those two options.
They're aligned, but first of all, I personally have never worked in the financial world. I've been around it. I was married for a long time to someone who was very big in trading, and I lived all over the world with that. So I certainly was aware of, investing in finance and things like that. But my background is really marketing and advertising. That's where I started my career. But I'm a big picture thinker, and it was when I went to that conference and saw how companies could be taken apart, I got the idea of impacting the world as you impact your wealth.
Mm.
Just sitting like it dropped down on you in the conference. You're like,
well, I've been thinking about it for a long time, because
yeah.
After I was married, I had to start managing my own investments, and the wealth managers I was talking to never brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you were saying, you would go in there, and if you said, I'm really worried about X, Y, and Z, they just wouldn't know how to talk about it, or they didn't, they just want you to, make sure that they're investing for a positive return.
Yeah, they got their set plan before you even walk in the door.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they're less, it's growing. I mean, companies like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are getting more and more information on how to talk to new investors the way they want to be spoken to.
Yeah.
But with something like Unify, it's like Robinhood. It's just in your hands, and you'll have that power without having to deal with.
Well, there's so much information out there. I think it can be overwhelming for anyone that is trying to, invest with a conscience, that, there's no way that you could, really dig down into the data like, what you're able to do with AI. So
yeah,
I think the idea is a great idea, because it really can shed light on, something that might never be, in a normal investment package.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, real quick, Rex, just since you mentioned that, like, it made me think of like with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, and you saw companies really embrace it. Like one, for instance, was JP Morgan Chase, right? But on the surface, I'm always wondering, like, okay, like, are they serious about it, or is it a PR stunt? And that's where I feel like where your company hopefully could be a point where people could dig in deeper and see, like, hey, this is just a PR stunt, or they really mean something behind here.
One of the most important, I wouldn't say mission, but one thing that we will always be is transparent. That is the whole thing that makes us who we are.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. When every single company jumped on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon, you have to think to yourself, what was their reasoning? Mm-hmm. What exactly? Now, some companies had very good policy behind it, but so many just said, oh, I just want to say that we support this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that's why what you're doing is so important, because from just a, hey, like an investor standpoint of like, I'm looking for a money manager to put my money somewhere. I don't like dig into it. They're just like, hey, yeah, they took this stand, so I'm going to put my money there. And I'm not, and again, I wasn't trying to pick out JP Morgan Chase. It's just the one that popped into my head,
Okay, no, of
you
course.
know. But being able to actually go through your platform and see like what they're actually doing and not just the new tagline that they put, on their slogan.
Well, yeah. So the idea is that you you pick out. We give you 9 impact values, and on our website that's very clear. But I'm sure I'm happy to tell you what they are that you can choose from. There are things like climate action, resource use, pollution and waste, human rights, public health, corporate responsibility, and collaboration and transparency. So you can choose from those values the ones that kind of hit home, and then you can choose companies and see how are those companies. Look at your own portfolio and just choose some of the companies from your portfolio, type them in, or we offer them already there for you, and you just type in the symbol and it will come up with a scale to show you how are they performing in the areas that you're concerned about, and then there'll be news to support that as well.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
And I would imagine, just in the general sense of AI, the
Mm-hmm.
more that this continues to work, the better the data just continues to get, just because it feeds off each other.
Exactly. The whole idea is that it feeds off each other. We're hoping for collaboration among investors or among users. And, it's not just about investing. This is about lifestyle. I would like to create a movement with this. As any sort of entrepreneurial business does, you have to do some research to see, is there going to be a need is there a need for this in the market? So very early on, we did research on 1,000 respondents. And we created 2 users personas. One was James, and he's the guy that's on Robinhood, but he's got concerns just like we all do. So he really wants to know the companies that he's investing in, or the companies he'd like to invest in, how are they performing? And now he's got a way to really see it as in a much more detailed way than ever before. Susie, on the other hand, wants to live a sustainable lifestyle. She wants to know that the products she's buying are within her values, and she wants to learn how to create a financial plan that's sustainable for her. So, and hopefully then become an investor. So we're kind of offering a lot of data for people to use in any which way they'd like.
Yeah, I think you are in the right spot in the right time, because I mean, just right now, I feel like the consciousness of people, and probably a lot to do with social media and people's ability to get information outside the mainstream media source. But right now, I feel like it's a time where people are really starting to be like, the voting for my dollars, with my dollars, means a lot right now.
Right.
And I definitely see that the time is right, and the vision that you have is right on point. I don't know if this is possible, but you know how like when like if you're a publicly traded company, like you have a fiduciary responsibility to provide the most amount of money or whatnot for your shareholders. It would be a cool, and I don't know if this is just a crazy dream, but if there was also some sort of fiduciary responsibility to provide some sort of social aspect, as well. I don't know how you do that legally or how that works, but at least as a vision, I was like, that would be pretty cool.
Well, I think when I mentioned SASB, remember when I was telling you about
Mm-hmm.
sustainable accounting? That's the first step. That's what they're there for. They want to be sure that companies are performing in that way. And the thing about Unify is that's all we do. So, it's a tremendous feeling to think that this is all we're about. And yeah, if we could be Robinhood for sustainable thinking. There's another digital site that's kind of really cool, that's a niche as well, which is Elevest. It's for women only. And it's a wonderful website started by a champion in the industry, Sally Crenshaw. But they cover women's issues. And it's terrific. And hopefully Unify will be right up there as that type of market for the rest of us, that are for all of us that want to have a holistic picture of the future.
Yeah.
And so if someone's listened to this, what's the best way for them to take advantage of Unify? Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so right now, best thing to do is to go on Google Chrome,
Okay.
type in www.unifyimpact.com. It's a really, really, really informational website, and it will talks about what is ESG, how do we get our data, all that stuff. And there's there's not podcasts, but blogs on it too, so you can
Okay.
some industry stories. It will allow you to open up the app and join. And then they can, at this point, we're user testing, so they can please write us back and say, wait a second.
Yeah.
Because as I said, we're a minimally viable product at this point, and we're adding features very, very quickly. So
And you mentioned Google Chrome. So is it just a Google Chrome app at this
at
point?
this point, we're early on. We just launched about a month and a half ago. So we are Google Chrome, but we
And
can do
so
everything.
it's basically like an add-on to Google Chrome at that point?
I don't know what you mean by an add-on. I just know that when you, if you just look for Unify Impact, it's just a website that pops up. And then when
Right. I get that. Like, I wasn't sure if it was,
I accessed it on Safari, so it works on multiple browsers.
Thank you. I'll tell the dev team.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk to them. Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to throw in another plug too, just with Unify, just because it's something that I think just hits really home. Is like you said before, it is, it's not just a nonprofit. That's nothing against nonprofits. We interview a lot of nonprofits, but this is a place like if you want to get return on your money, and as well too, it's like when you invest in companies and you are an investor, like the more you invest, you are the boss. Like it's a way, it empowers you as an everyday person to make change. Like it's a very empowering platform for
You
someone.
want to join? Because that was perfect.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
You're welcome. But it's true. It is. It's very empowering.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very excited by it.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to circle back with you because I think that this is just going to continue to grow and build momentum, especially, like Vaden said, this is where people's mindsets are right now. Is they're starting to be like, wait a second, I'm not just going to spend my money on this portfolio that some guy picked out that I don't even know. I want to, get stuff that is going to be impactful in the world.
Well, and that's powerful. And the idea that you can take, like, even if you're working in a company, you've got a company 401k, you can unpack that and say, hang on a minute and see if you want to divest from some things if it's
right.
Yeah.
So you get the power to divest from things. And the whole idea of the shareholder right is going to explode. It's going to be huge.
Awesome. Well, there is a huge trend, and we appreciate you coming on and explaining it. And like Rex said, yeah, in the future, a couple months down the road or whatnot, as things progress, we'd love to have you back on and just kind of talk about, give some updates and where you guys are at.
I would love that.
All right.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you
It's been
so
a lot
much.
of fun. Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It's so nice to meet both of you.
Yeah.